The Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan, and DigitalOcean. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code LASTDigital, and then you can spin up your own Linux rig for free. Welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 393. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey there, Noah. Good morning to you. Guess what? It's a big show today, but not like you're familiar with. We're going to kind of throw out the format this week because it is a holiday episode and we're recording on a Sunday, and we decided to do something a little special. We're going to go over the projects we're thankful for. It's been a few years since the big show did this, and there is definitely some new entries on both of our lists, some really big projects and some smaller projects too that you might not have even heard of before. So we'll be covering those in sort of a different edition of the Linux Action Show this week. We do have some emails and a couple other things, and a giveaway we'll be announcing towards the end of the show. And, Noah, like always, we still have
The Picks.
The Picks. That's right. And also, a special good morning to our live stream over at jblive.tv who've joined us on this Sunday because, well, it was a holiday week for the Linux Action Show. So we're recording live on a Sunday, so it's great to have everybody over here. We'll be back to our Friday schedule next week. But let's talk about our Runs Linux this week. It was sent in by Patrick. He says that this wheat farm runs Linux. Here's some videos of Matthew Reamer, a Canadian wheat and canola grower using a drone, software, and hardware to automatically pilot his tractor. You can see him combine his harvester running Mav proxy drone software on an Ubuntu box. This is crazy cool. So if you didn't follow that, essentially, this totally geeky farmer has built himself a Linux-powered automated farm equipment setup. I'm going to play a little bit of his video where he talks about it here.
Okay, so here's my app on the Surface 3. I'm in the Combine again.
Yeah, for those of you listening, he is running Ubuntu on a Surface 3 tablet. So it might sound like he's maybe running Windows, but it's actually Ubuntu that he has on here.
Here's me pushing the start unloading button. And now we flip to the tractor. And you aren't going to see it, but I'm going to speed the tractor up on my app. I have buttons to control the speed. So I just speeded it up. It's turning around.
And now the tractor starts coming at him. And I'm going to jump ahead a couple of minutes into the video. The whole thing's about 5 minutes long. You can watch it. But at 3 minutes and 42 seconds, you can see clearly nobody's driving the tractor, and he starts issuing it commands from the Ubuntu box.
Now I'm going to send the tractor to the approach, which I've previously picked. You can see in the background there is my half ton.
And there's no one in the tractor.
If we go back to the app here, you click go to approach and then the go button and off it goes. You can see it starts moving.
There's
it
the
always
tractor.
starts moving at the slowest speed, and the operator has to speed it up. I think that's a good control feature. So if we go back here, I push the max button.
Maximum speed.
And the tractor
Look at it go!
speeds
Jeez,
right up
man.
and takes off.
Isn't that great?
I need that. I could mow my lawn with
I'm just
that.
outputting with some print statements to the display here, but tractors...
Look at that with the distance
to
approaches.
approach is 73, 70, 69, 68,
Coming out in a
65.
terminal.
When it gets 30 meters from where I've marked the approach, it starts to slow down. I guess we could actually follow along. We don't have to be stuck way back here.
So what's great is Matthew has a channel where he posts a lot of this stuff. No, he's essentially a geek farmer, and he's just kind of vlogging his geeky farm as he goes. And so Patrick sent this into the show for us to check out. And here's another great thing. John Deere got all litigious when a farmer wanted access to their tractor's software just to change the seeding rate. Can you imagine how much this is going to upset them? I mean, this is totally automating their rigs. By the way, Mav Proxy up on GitHub, and Matthew is also on Twitter. We'll have a link in the show notes if you go read the email from Patrick. You can follow him on Twitter where he's talking about this stuff. But man, here is a great example, Noah, of a totally legitimate use for a farmer having access to the core software in these John Deere tractors, and he's able to now automate his farm in a way that's obviously going to make him much more profitable.
Yeah, here's the thing. There are a lot of things that are cool about that video. Let's start with the fact that he got Linux running on a Surface Pro 3, which, well, here's the thing. I have a friend that was issued a Surface Pro 3 for his work, and of course, the first thing I did was try to put Linux on it. It's actually not that straightforward. Like we ran into a number of different challenges doing it. So that's cool. And then the fact that he has deliberately decided to use Linux to do some of this stuff, Which I suppose if you're going to attach it to heavy farm equipment, I suppose you can't really use Windows.
Would you want to build your farm around Windows 10, dude?
Well, listen. I'll be very honest with you, Chris. I would trust a fart when I have the flu more than I would trust Windows or Mac OS to run my heavy machinery.
I couldn't say it more elegantly myself, Noah. So speaking of elegance, did you have a good Thanksgiving, sir? How was it?
I had a great Thanksgiving. Yeah, it was a blast. We did Thanksgiving in the new house, and so we did. Some of the appliances weren't working quite right, but we muddled through. And
really?
Yeah, well, we knew that moving in.
Yeah.
And Alex flew down to help kind of set things up and help me move things in and out. And yeah, it was great.
We had we had family in from out of town, and since they were from out of town, but they wanted to host Thanksgiving, they Airbnb'd a really, really nice place. So that was fun. So they just got it for a couple of days. And one of the nice things about it is it had 2 floors, and on each floor it had a full kitchen. So they had 2 cooking stations going. And so they were able to produce quite a bit of food. So that was fun. And then yesterday, on Saturday, the place we're staying at, Thousand Trails, had a community Thanksgiving. And so Hadi and I brought, like a salad, and she made gingerbread cake. And we went down there and we had a chat, and I ended up chatting with a software developer who works remotely developing ASP.NET type applications and things like that. And he just switched over to building Skype TX, so helping work on the Skype TX project. So I was picking his brain about how awful Skype is while I'm sitting there at the Thanksgiving turkey dinner thing, talking to him about all of the issues I have with Skype and why I think maybe Google has something going for them, but the issues I have with Hangouts. It was very cathartic. I mean, I unloaded on this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he asked for it. For it.
And was he receptive to it? Was he like, we're actually working on that. We're going to have Skype for Linux that supports 1080p video.
He started. We got in the conversation about Google and how Google's kind of keeping Microsoft competitive, and why that's probably why they're going to keep Skype TX free. And I said, well, you want to talk about really free? I said, it takes some maintenance, but if you're a broadcast facility and you have engineering staff, you have dedicated staff, which is just something I don't have. But if you have dedicated staff that does just the technology engineering part, you could really easily, and I'm explaining to this guy what Jitsi is, and a stun server and XMPP. He's familiar with XMPP and that kind of stuff. So I said, we did something where we rolled our own video conferencing solution using Jitsi, XMPP, a stun server, all running on droplets, that we ended up getting, controllable 720p or 1080, depending on what we want to do. We control the resolution, the bitrate, the audio codec, all of it using free software. And I said that, regardless of what Hangouts offers, Hangouts is never going to be at the quality where I think broadcast is going to want to put it on CNN or the Oprah show, because Oprah uses Skype TX heavily right now. That's why I mentioned it. That's their pride, is Oprah. And so I was explaining to him that one of the nice things with these open source solutions is no watermarking required. Skype TX requires watermarking. And the level of control you get and flexibility you get makes it really easy to deploy if you have a dedicated team. Where Skype TX is really nice is if you don't have a dedicated engineer in your studio who's working on the technology all the time. But it was an interesting back and forth where I'm like, I don't think Hangouts is your only competition. Let me tell you about Jitsi and why it's not quite there yet. But if you are dedicated enough, you can really make it work. And we got, we had a good dialogue back and forth about it. When we pretty much talked the entire time, and then dinner was over, and I realized I didn't talk to a lot of people. This guy and I just went back and forth on a lot of stuff. And he, coincidentally, is kind of looking at switching over to more of the Linux stack and maybe getting out of Microsoft and all that. But he wants to stay with technologies that allow him to work remotely because he's working out of his fifth wheel there at Thousand Trails. And so he was kind of considering a couple of different things. So I pointed him over at Linux Academy, actually, and Code Academy, too.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was actually kind of fun. No, it was. And speaking of droplets and running and deploying your own solutions, let me tell you about DigitalOcean, the first sponsor here on episode 393 of the Linux Action Show. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use the promo code. Get ready for this, kids. LastDigital. All lowercase, one word, LastDigital, because you're a boost. Gives you a $10 credit, and you can try DigitalOcean 2 months for free because their prices are ridiculously great. DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way for you to spin up a Linux rig really super fast. You'll get started in less than 55 seconds. I'm not talking 60 seconds, 55. And pricing plans start at only $5 a month. Get your 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD. And they're all SSDs. 1 CPU and a terabyte of transfer. And DigitalOcean has data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Germany, and an FU NSA, one in Toronto. That's not their words. Those are mine. Because really, come on, think about it. The interface, though, for DigitalOcean, it's awesome, it's simple, it's intuitive. I really like it because they've taken something very complex, something when I was managing virtual machines required that I had a Windows VM so then I could run the VM management software, drove me crazy, and the UI was awful and slow. And why was it so awful and slow if it was a native application? Why couldn't they get that right? Maybe they're too busy violating the GPL and ripping off BusyBox. Anyways, DigitalOcean has nailed it. They have a great UI that's still very powerful, allows you to manage your machines, destroy your machines, transfer your machines, back up your machines, one-click deployment of great open source applications. But the best part is DAT API. Oh man, DAT API. They have a nice straightforward API that even my dumb monkey brain can wrap its head around. But even better than that, a lot of people are just creating open source apps for the Linux desktops, for them Mac desktops, I think that's what they call them. Your phone, all that stuff. They got great stuff. And, like nice, easy scripts that you can just add to your app command to do a snapshot before you do a big upgrade. And they always have really great tutorials. They're just spotlighting this one here, how to create a high availability setup with Heartbeat and DigitalOcean's new floating IP features on Ubuntu 14.04. This is really nice. You want some serious uptime. You want to make sure like A, either your website never goes down, or B, has a really great failover site to go to. This is so straightforward. Go check them out. Really nice. Last Digital gets you the $10 credit. Going there using that promo code keeps this show going. Last Digital over DigitalOcean.com, and a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. You guys, you rock. You rock. DigitalOcean.com. Last Digital. All right, Mr. Noah. So you busted out something I never even heard about here for our desktop app pick. I'm pretty thankful for a surprise from time to time. Tell me about Atraci, I think is how you say it. Boy, I probably know how you say it, but tell me about it.
So I'm waiting for my stupid page to load here, but basically
60 million songs, 100% free, no ads, no sign up, and it's legal. But better than that, they have a desktop Linux client that I have installed right here. Check that out.
Right. So it is there we go. Okay.
It's like Spotify, only not Spotify at all,
right? So it streams from YouTube is my understanding. And so basically you pick the song you want, it goes out and finds the song and then allows you to play it. I was playing with it a little bit the other night, but
Here's some T-Swift, although it's not working for me right now, but it is available in the Arch user repository, which is kind of nice. Sorry, not to interrupt, but
no, it's all right. So I had it working the other night, and I was using it on Ubuntu, and the thing I think that stands out to me is I hate ads. Like I like Spotify, but I don't like having to pay for things, and I also don't like ads, which makes me the person that wants this cake and wants to eat it too, and then doesn't want to gain any weight because of it. And so I feel like a Tracy or a Tracy or however it is it's pronounced does exactly that. The only knock I have on it is the audio quality sometimes is not
going to vary a little bit, huh?
Yeah. So if that bothers you, then you can count yourself out. But for example, if you're sitting cleaning up a mess from a water heater, it's super, super nice to have music that just continues without getting interrupted. And here's the other thing too. I realized this somewhere halfway through using Spotify. The ads themselves aren't what bother me. It's the fact that they're like maybe 20% louder than the music. That's what drives me absolutely nuts.
Sure, yeah, old man, I hear you.
I don't know why they did that.
Oh, back in my day, everything was the same volume level.
Right. No, it just I'm trying to fall asleep and I'm listening to music and all of a sudden,
boom.
Want more ads?
Yeah.
Want less ads?
Yeah.
Try Spotify Premium.
Yeah. Actually, the chat room, we have a few folks in the chat room saying they've been using this and it's actually freaking fantastic, they say. So, and I really like here's the thing I really like about it. No account required. So no emails from them, no more places to lose my password. And if it is using YouTube videos, there may be some TOS violation there, but I don't know. The chat room says also, though, it also pulls from other sources as well. So
okay.
Yeah, you can go find out more on their website. We'll have a link in the show notes. And then also, it's probably worth mentioning, too, the sucker is open source. Did you mention that?
We did not, but it is hosted on GitHub, so if that wasn't obvious to you, yes, it is
open source. So if it is going to be a terms of service violation, hopefully it's one of those things that gets easily fixed. And I actually did eventually kick in for a Spotify Premium account, and the nice thing about that is I can turn up the quality to be high quality, and I do like that. And
you can sync audio. I think that's the big appeal to me.
One of the things is I think people that hear the show are gonna be like, oh, but that's got DRM, all of that. And I don't really care if I never have, like, if Spotify canceled my account tomorrow and I didn't have access to my music on Spotify, I really wouldn't care. I would just get it somewhere else. And the reason what I actually care more about now because of SSDs is not having that stuff on my hard drive. Like, why do I have an MP3 file of a song that I listen to 8 times a year tops? Why am I wasting valuable? I could have I'd rather have a video of a movie on there. I would rather have a Steam game installed. So for me, Spotify is sort of it's like additional storage that I don't have to waste my SSDs on for stuff that is not as important to me. If I was a huge music collector, if it was a really important thing to me, things like Atrocity or Spotify or Pandora probably wouldn't be for me. I'd want to have all of my local networks.
Yeah, I guess I have a slightly different take on it. If I had my choice, I would gladly store all those music files. For me, though, it's the problem of a new song comes out. I want that song. I now have to make a conscious effort to go out, find out what the new songs are, what they are, and download them, copy to whatever device I'm going to use, and start playing them. The nice thing about Spotify or Atrocity is it just spits out the latest songs get updated, and so I just set the computer on autopilot, and I never get sick of music because it's always something new. That's, I think, what it does for me.
Yeah, that is really cool, and you find new stuff that way. All right, Noah, so let's talk about our spotlight this week. I think it was sent in by an audience member, and it promises to make it easy to run my own server, and it's designed for humans. I've heard that before. What's this about?
So basically, it's sandstorm.io, and what it allows you to do is with a simple little web-based UI, it turns your server into a device like your smartphone with an app store. So you literally click the little plus icon to install an app from the app market. It loads the app market, and of course you can put your own on there. You can upload your own. And so if I want to set up WordPress, I just click on the WordPress, and in 30 seconds, boom, all of a sudden I have a server running WordPress. And I was playing with the heck out of it. I installed Davros or DavROS or however you pronounce it, which is basically an online file server. I installed FileDrop, which is kind of like your own hosted version of Dropbox.
Or it's like a remote file upload Dropbox, not like syncing, right? But it's more like like the old school FTP kind of upload folder where you could just drop something in for somebody.
Yep. I set up NodeBB last night. I set up Let's Chat. It's just really cool to be able to just click on those apps, and all of a sudden, boom, I have the app available to me. And if for those, it's funny that I'm taking such a
because when Cockpit came around, I was going to call you on this. You were kind of like, this makes it easy for anybody to be a sysadmin. That's a bad thing.
That's right. But and here is I struggled with that the other night. I was like, so why does this strike me so cool? And Cockpit, and here's what it is, because I don't think any serious server deployment, no company is going to pay a guy to come in and say, well, we want you to set up a server, and we want you to go to sandstorm.io and host this little thing yourself, and then click on the button. They would just do that themselves. So I think this appeals to the people that need a server, that don't want to administrate the server and don't want to pay somebody to administrate the server.
Sure.
I'm totally cool with that.
Here's why I like it, Noah, is one of the things that we've talked about a few times on the show, and I've tried to put it in different ways, and I never really quite nailed it in a way that I think is really sellable. But what I've said a lot of times is open source often suffers from the uncanny valley, where we make something really awesome, but that last 5 to 10% that would make it actually usable by like an interested developer, somebody who's not really comfortable with Linux or maybe even the command line possibly, but somebody who would love to take advantage of something like OwnCloud, or love to take advantage of something like RTorrent, or all of the thousands of Node.js applications, but has no idea how to set any of this stuff up. This makes it approachable to that. This closes that gap. This like how Docker took containers, and because they created the whole Docker set of scripts around containerization and the Docker hub, and made it very Git-like, so it was a workflow that was very familiar to people. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, over the last year, Docker and containers on Linux has become the next big thing for servers. It has just, we've all witnessed just an extremely big blow up, just huge. I think this is kind of the same thing for a lot of popular open source apps in general. Is it's not about deploying it on, Amazon EC2 where you're going to have tens of thousands of users. It's more where every little bit of performance counts and every little bit of transfer counts and every little bit of CPU usage counts. It's more about, hey, I've heard about this really cool open source tool called Ghost that would maybe let me blog a little bit. And instead of going and deploying something on blogger.com, I would like to just try clicking through this and seeing what that's like. And now all of a sudden, we have ourselves a new open source software user that isn't using Google's proprietary blogging platform. And I think that's a really nice thing. It doesn't have to be the replacement for Ansible, or something like that. It just has to be something that makes open source software more approachable to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Sandstorm.io, and thanks for a few people who sent this into the show. It's something we've been meaning to take a look at, and they have a 60-second demo you can check out on their website too, which is pretty cool. So Sandstorm.io, an open source platform for personal instances of web apps. You can run it on your own server, or they also have something called the Oasis, which sounds really cool, where you can run your stuff. You can run your stuff over there. Hey, Noah, crazy thing just happened. The Last Jacket has returned. Oh my gosh, for the holidays.
Oh,
There
really?
it is. There it is. The Last Jacket, the Linux Action Show Zip Up hoodie is back. And we kind of have a new twist because Teespring has been on their game since the last time we ran this, and they have opened an EU fulfillment center as well. So now we can ship right over there. Just boom across the pond. They even have some really wicked colors. Right there, local shipments should save you a bunch on the shipping. It just means we have 2 URLs now. If you'd like to get yourself a limited time Linux Action Show hooded jacket with a zipper, with a logo on there, we have 14 days left. Teespring.com/LASUS, Teespring.com/LASUS, or LASEU. So it's teespring.com/LASUS or /LASEU, depending on where you're at. We'll have links in the show notes too.
Did I tell you what happened to my last sweatshirt?
No.
Yeah, so these sweatshirts I have, like, it's weird. They just keep causing problems in my life. So the last sweatshirt I had, my wife stole. So I no longer had it. I bought one for myself, and then my wife's like, "Oh, this is comfortable. I want it." So that was the end of that. And then Blaster left his in my rental car
Right.
when
Remember
we were
that.
at Southeast. Okay, all right. So that one. So I took that. So anyway, so I ended up ordering him a replacement. Before I could give him the replacement, your wife gave him another one, which he then left in my second rental car at Linux West Northwest.
Hey-o.
No, actually, he left it in his own rental car at Linux West Northwest. And I was supposed to go pick it up, and I was going to go pick it up, but I ran out of time, so I didn't end up having a chance to pick it up for him. So they were going to mail it back to me, and they ended up not mailing it back for whatever reason. And so now I was just talking to him the other day, and I'm like, "Hey, I still have a sweatshirt for you." And then he has something for me too. And we're like, "Oh, we'll have to find a place to meet up." So I'm super glad that these sweatshirts are available again, because I probably need to order a couple and just have a couple on hand.
Yeah, they are our most popular and the one we've gotten the most feedback on, because they are super, super comfortable. And it is it's based on the Hanes Heavy Blended Full Zip Up hoodie. And so, you go there, check it out. It's teespring.com/LASUS or LASEU. And my personal classic favorites are we have a dark, like, deep green. The red is always really good, and of course the black. But the red's kind of like the classic one. Because those are the ones. The nice thing about the red ones is when you go out to conferences and stuff, or you just see somebody walking around in public, they notice that jacket, and that is actually a really cool thing. Because the show has a big enough reach now where that's happened more and more. So go over to teespring.com/LASUS to grab a jacket, or LASEU, and we'll be running it for 14 days. We just do this from time. We haven't ran one, I don't think, since last year. So we don't run it too often because, what we found is if we run it too much, then nobody buys. Because you just assume you'll be able to get it the next time. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to run it for a bit, and you can grab it. And we'll have a link
So
in the
if
show
you want
notes.
one, this is like the chance.
Yeah, and what's
get
funny is, like, this is also like when Chris kind of gets his wardrobe on, because like, first of all, I like having stuff that's got our swag on it. But the other thing is that they're actually really great. They're really great, especially for this time of year. It is really something. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Also, previous picks that we've featured over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/lastpicks. Episode 400 t-shirts. I hadn't thought of that, Art of Music. We are getting close. We'd have to come up with something really good. If anybody out there has any ideas for a 400 episode t-shirt, I might consider it.
And 400 episode ideas too. That would be cool.
Oh yeah, I guess we got to figure that out too. No, that's a you and I. We should have like a brainstorming session. You know, I hear people do those sometime. I hear people do those sometimes. I guess I would be remiss to also skip on this information. We are doing swag for the holidays. If you have a successful Patreon payment in November of any amount in the Tech Talk Today patron at patreon.com/today or the Unfilter, if you have a successful Patreon payment, then you just watch for the swag link in the show notes of any episode sometime in December, and you'll be entered in for a drawing of some really awesome swag. Coolest swag we've ever done. So even if you don't have the cashola to grab a shirt, but you'd still like to support the network, you can sign up at patreon.com/today. That supports all of the shows, and we'll be giving away swag through the month of December, and it is particularly awesome, especially the Tech Talk Today swag. Anyways, patreon.com/today if you want to get in on that. And we'll be giving more information out soon. I'm really excited. I can't wait to get my jackets too. All right, Noah, so we got to just give people a fair warning. The rest of this episode is about to get super sappy. It is our holiday episode. Now, I'm going to call the next segment the news, but it's more like thankful news, really, because it's open source projects we are thankful for that have a little bit of news to talk about this week. So we're kind of blending the original format with our thankful episode, and then that will just roll into projects we just straight up love and want to talk about. So Noah, with that all done, let's do the thankful news.
It's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Everybody knows that. Go to las.ting.com, las.ting.com, and you'll get to save even more than ever. Now, Ting is mobile that makes sense. My mobile service provider, it's Noah's mobile service provider, Rikai's mobile service provider. I mean, really, a lot of the JB Crew's mobile service provider. I just like calling Rikai out because he's got that beard. No contract, no crazy termination fees. You only pay for what you use. They dig your minutes, your messages, your megabytes, add them all up. And that's what you pay. $6 for the phone line, and then you just pay. So you want a few phones. So it's not a big deal because it's just $6 for each phone. You got a few kids. I don't know what you're doing. Keep it in your pants. You got a few employees. Yeah, I hear you. You know what you do? You get them Ting phones. Go to last.ting.com. And Ting is doing their Black Friday sale until Monday. They got some really good stuff. You can find out more on their blog. They also have the $5 SIM, so you can go get a SIM card for $5 right now. Also, a pro tip, the Ting SIM card is now on Amazon with Amazon Prime. That's nuts. Also, look at this sucker. The Moto G 3rd Gen, $180, GSM, no contract, only pay for what you use, unlocked. $180, you walk away. You pay for what you use, get the pure Google experience. And that's the 3rd Gen Moto G. The 2nd Gen Moto G, I know you had some experience with it. It was close.
Yeah, well, so as some of you may or may not remember, at the worst possible time, my phone broke. Well, actually, your phone broke because you loaned me a phone that broke it. And then we actually went to a prepaid store, and I just bought a phone that I could then move over to Ting. And so I actually used the Moto E, I think it was, for about
Oh, okay. I thought you had the G. Oh, okay. All right.
What's the lower version?
The G.
Oh, okay, so I had the Moto G then. I had the Moto G for about 2 weeks, and it was totally usable phone. I could get Telegram, I could get my email, I could browse the internet.
You even took a few pictures like an animal.
I did. It's an okay phone. The only thing I had about it was that it was just a little slow on the responsive time, but it's such a good price that kind of hard to compete with.
Yeah, and really, now the 3rd Gen is even better. And one of the things I like about it is it's IPX7 certified, so you can drop it into water, which a lot of people do, and it'll be in good condition. So there's a lot of nice things going on at Ting. That's not the only thing they have on sale. They have a ton of great devices, plus they have those SIM cards. So get started by going to las.ting.com and check out their crazy Black Friday sale until Monday. But even when there's, not a crazy sale, even when it's just a regular old day at Ting, it's still incredible prices, incredibly great customer service, a fantastic dashboard that's better than all of the other carriers. They have a CDMA and GSM network. You can bring your own devices and get even a better deal. I mean, it is really one of the most innovative mobile solutions out there. And they don't have to dress up like a clown in a pink outfit with a leather jacket to get you to buy their stuff. Just go to last.ting.com and check them out. You can also call them at 1-800 Ting FTW. I think that's what it is. 1-855 Ting FTW might be. Let me double check. 1-855-846-4389. That's 1-855 Ting FTW. You can also follow them on Twitter at Ting FTW. And they were doing giveaways recently, and they had announcements about their Black Friday sale. Oh man. Oh, I kind of really want to get that. Boy, the Nexus 5X. I kind of want that real bad. No, I kind of want that Nexus 5X on Ting real bad.
Yeah.
So go to last.ting.com and start saving right now. And a big thanks to Ting. And I really mean it. Speaking of things that we are thankful for here at Jupiter Broadcasting, I don't think the studio would have been possible without Ting. So I'm very thankful for Ting. Go to last.ting.com to keep them supporting our show. And if you can get in there before Monday, you can take advantage of that totes awesome Black Friday deal. And, maybe just go grab a sim, if nothing else. All right, so let's jump into the news that we're thankful for this week. And I want to start with Zero AD. I don't know if they've ever made my thankful release list because, I'm not a player. So I don't tend to talk about them very much. I know. So you might be wondering, why did Zero AD make my list this week? Well, this week they released Alpha 19. And with this, it is truly a new level of polish for this game. They've added incredible voice acting now, new art assets. Zero AD is literally becoming better than any of the commercial games out there. Now, not that of this genre. Now, it's not there yet for all of them, but it is genuinely better than many of the commercial games out there, and it is an open source free game. The alpha now features building a siege engine for capturing your enemies, new Pathfinder, visual replays, Latin voiceovers. I don't think this game gets enough attention. I'm thankful this team sticks to their guns and keeps releasing better and better products. They're becoming a shining example of what an open source project can be, and they're doing it as a video game. So anyways, Zero AD, I look at it and I think, look at a group that has really stuck to their original mission, has made an amazing product, and in a way can now become really an example of, it takes time, but look what an open source game can do. And we so often on this show are talking now about Steam and the commercial games that are hopefully going to bring Linux switchers over and Steam machines, and it feels really good to stop for a minute on the Linux Action Show and acknowledge that this is a really incredible open source application. And it's a video game. So Zero AD is my first news item that I'm thankful for this week, and I congratulate them on the new Alpha 19 release. I don't know, have you ever played what was the old Microsoft one that was Age of Empires? Did you ever do Age of Empires or anything like that?
No, I didn't do Age of Empires, but I did, was it StarCraft?
Sure.
I think it was kind of a similar thing. And here's the thing, I have to avoid certain games, and that being one of them.
Really?
Because I get addicted, and then I get nothing done, and then I have a very addictive personality, and I also you combine that with my incessant need to be right and win all the time, and it's a recipe for disaster. So I have to stay away from those kind of things. Otherwise, I get too entrenched and I get nothing done.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's good to recognize that about yourself. So next news item that I'm thankful of this week is the Software Freedom Conservancy. And they're doing something kind of big right now. Well, they call it their Black Friday deal, but they're trying to do some critical fundraising. They need 750 supporters to continue its basic community services, and they need 2,500 to avoid hibernating their GPL enforcement efforts. And I normally I don't get involved with these kinds of things too much because these are always very complex issues, and the people behind them are very complex people. However, they do have a great deal going right now. And they are in the middle of a battle that I think could be very important, and it's one that we haven't really had a chance to talk about on the Linux Action Show, and it's one that I'm very thankful the Software Conservancy is fighting. And because I think this lawsuit they are fighting could result in future enforcement abilities of the GPL, and that's a big deal. So the Conservancy has announced funding for the GPL compliance lawsuit against VMware. They announced that Christopher Hillwig's lawsuit against VMware in the District Court of Hamburg in Hamburg, Germany. This is, they say, a regretful but necessary next step. Hillwig is a key Linux kernel developer and one of the earliest members of the Conservancy's GPL compliance project for Linux developers. He's publicly denounced VMware's misuse of GPL licensed software code in 2007, since 2007. And in 2001, the Conservancy discovered that VMware had failed to provide nor offer any source code for the version of BusyBox. I want to make that clear. BusyBox. not the kernel, BusyBox, which is a tightly packaged together distribution for minimal deployments and other things. Included in VMware's ESXi products, which is often the one I complain about, something that was Linux-based that I had to manage from a Windows machine. And the BusyBox software is licensed via GPL2. So the conservancy began in 2012 with negotiations with VMware to seek compliance on all the GPL components of the ESXi project. And in 2013, things pretty much stalled out. Hilwig's lawsuit against VMware to enforce the GPL license of BusyBox and the conservancy's support of it could have long-term ramifications for the future ability to enforce the GPL. And I think we're all pretty familiar with how critical that would be to Linux and all of the amazing code that is GPL licensed. So I'm thankful the conservancy is fighting this fight for us. VMware says the lawsuit is without merit, and if you're curious, I do have additional links in the show notes, story by ZDNet. But at the end of the day, somebody has to be responsible for this really boring, annoying, non-technical licensing crap. And I am really thankful that there is a group out there that cares enough to focus in on that point. And I don't know, Noah, if you agree, if you maybe feel like if it's maybe another take on it, but your thoughts on it.
I absolutely agree that it's important. And the other thing is, why bother licensing this stuff? Why bother open sourcing it if proprietary people can just steal it and use it in their projects, right? I mean, if we're going to license this stuff, we have to protect it. And there have to be people that are available to figure all this, figure all the minutia stuff out.
And you know what? If you don't want to use the GPL, you have a couple of options. You can go use the substandard BSD license stuff, or write it yourself, or go buy it and patent it and buy a patented version and license it from somebody and pay them dividends forever. You know, so essentially, GPL software is not completely free for you to use, because you do have to essentially pay it forward and make that source code available, make those modifications available. Now, we may never use it, but that is essentially the cost you pay. It is a different kind of price. And so when you are creating a product like VMware that is built on top of BusyBox, which is a fundamental component to make the product possible, you have to admit you are exchanging the use of that incredible software, because that has all been R&D. That has been tried and true. Somebody else is worried about that, created that. Somebody else has tested it. Somebody else has thought about it. Somebody else has created all of that code for you to use. All of that intellectual property, as the commercial guys like to call it, all of that IP has been created for you to better your product and base your product on. And the only thing you have to do is, instead of writing a big old fat check, which I know you're comfortable with, you have to then release your modifications and the source code. And that is the price you pay. And if you're not comfortable with that price, go get the crappy BSD stuff or write your own. It is really that, or license it, right? And I'm not even trying to be funny guy here. It's like literally that is the decision tree that companies need to make. And if they can't make that decision, then they shouldn't have used GPL software. And the thing is I'm not going to sit here and think about, as somebody who deployed a lot of VMware servers, I don't have a number, but it's in the hundreds. Every time I did that, I thought, I wonder if I could go get the source code for all this stuff. But I never really gave any consideration. And so it's really, really nice that somebody like Karen over at the Software Conservancy and others are focusing on this particular issue. I'm glad I don't have to. I'm thankful for that.
For sure.
All right. So one other company that we've talked a lot about more and more since Noah's joined the show, and also I think about 2 releases ago really sort of had a big perspective shift. A little bit earlier than that, but it really clicked in for me a couple of releases ago. Red Hat and Fedora. I want to talk a little bit why we're thankful for Red Hat and Fedora. And to do that, we'll mention that there is a major release to Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.2. It's not actually a news item I almost ever cover on the show as updates to Red Hat Enterprise Linux, because I don't think it generally applies to most of our audience, and those that it does apply to are probably already aware of it. But something is different with Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.2. They kind of went all in on this, and it's kind of surprising. They jumped from GNOME 3.8 to GNOME 3.14. This is a huge jump in a Red Hat Enterprise release, because it brings major new features into Red Hat Enterprise Linux, like high DPI support, improved touch and gesture support in GTK. It brings GNOME software to Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and of course, way more systemd and login improvements. And they say they plan on updating the desktop further in later Red Hat Enterprise Linux releases. Like, they're doubling down here on this. Now, I'm not necessarily thankful for this, but I think it is an interesting change of course because it makes the Red Hat Enterprise Linux workstation much more interesting. And I think it also means that stuff should trickle down to CentOS workstation, which is also very interesting. And so when you look at the things that have happened since the Fedora.next initiative, the switch to DNF, and let's talk about how it has been not flawless, not problem-free, but the switch to DNF has been one of the smoothest package manager transitions, and I realize why, but I mean, it has been one of the smoothest transitions I've seen in a long time, and it really is clicking into this broader rings concept that they've been rolling out with Fedora. You combine it now with the advantages of CentOS and a fairly modern CentOS workstation. Like, my God, man, I could make a GNOME 3.14 desktop work for me. Like, this is the first time in years I'm looking at Red Hat Enterprise Linux and I'm going, geez, I could maybe make the rig that Noah's called in on right now a CentOS box.
And the funny thing about that is very much not what CentOS was designed. Red Hat is designed for. That isn't what they marketed for, and yet you could still make that work. But I guess the reason that I'm most thankful for Red Hat in general, and then obviously as a fork of that, Fedora, is quite literally, I wouldn't be sitting here doing the show with you if it wasn't for the Red Hat company, because I would have never gotten involved with Linux, because I would have thought that Red Hat specifically saved me and Linux's reputation in my mind. I had some really bad experiences, and Red Hat was the first distro that actually worked for me, and it opened doors and kind of like it kind of laid the path for my career, so to speak, and everything after that. And I guess part of my loyalty to Red Hat is kind of why I continue to use Fedora release after release after release, despite the huge number of competitive advantages of a lot of other distros now. And so when you said last week, you're like, name projects that you're really thankful exists. I think Red Hat is, for me at least, at probably the top of the list. And the thing is, the Red Hat, the company is a company that I trust. And so I'm glad that a company that big with that much money is, it's one of the largest open source companies, and they still have a huge commitment to free and open source software.
And what also is remarkable about that is you're saying that in a day and age where the list of big companies like that I trust is shrinking super fast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In fact, it's almost as if by being big, that is a prerequisite to not being trusted. Like, it's almost as if once you get to a point, a certain size, you are inherently not trusted. And I suspected that wasn't the case with Red Hat. And then when we actually got to sit down, we talked to those Red Hat people. And I mean, you and I, I think a great example of that is when you and I were standing around talking with a couple of folks from Red Hat back at LinuxCon in Seattle.
Yeah.
You can just hear it. They live and breathe that stuff. It's not a marketing line. It's not a
right.
It's a core belief.
I would say
and that's
too
a refreshing
that
thing.
Some of these conversations that you and I have had on the sidelines have been some of the most valuable things we've taken away from some of our trips this year that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And they're things that are by their very definition, they have to be off the record. Because Red Hat themselves, from a corporate perspective, wants them off the record for legal reasons and liability reasons, which I never even thought of until I talked to these people. And so, I was thinking back on what's it like to go to these events and things like that. And that's one of the real things we took away from. And the only thing I can say about that is now you and I we can color our analysis a little bit. We can fill in some of the gaps now that we've talked to a dozen of the people behind, or more really at this point, but really more than that behind the scenes. And every time we've walked away, we've learned something that the general public doesn't know, and we've walked away going,
and they never will, probably.
Right, and almost in every time we go, God, if you guys let people know about that, that would be a big deal.
It would roll a lot of heads. There's no doubt. But the thing is, I guess to a certain degree, you just have to have some trust that they're very open, that their overall commitment is to free and open source software. And companies, a fraction of their size are saying that, well, we can't operate our business without Microsoft Office because we're too big to use that LibreOffice nonsense. And then there's Red Hat, $1 billion. and they use LibreOffice, and I mean, that's one example, but you have to, so they have this commitment to free and open source software, and I guess to some degree we just have to trust them, for the little pitfalls along the way that we just don't really understand. There's probably a reason for it. They may not just be able to come out and talk about it.
The other thing I'm kind of thankful for is that Canonical has emerged as a serious competitor to Red Hat with a very, very different story that is completely justifiable, and a lot of people have selected it. And so the reason why I like that a lot is I think a monoculture is very bad for open source. So often we get all lost in forks and distributed effort. And in the reality, you look at projects like OpenSSL and OpenSSH and you realize, oh, we've fallen into a monoculture. And by that very definition, we are all now exposed to the same risks. And so one of the things I like about what the Red Hat position and folks like Canonical and others out there is some genuine innovation and competition happening in that space. And Red Hat is one of the most serious contenders, not just in like the Linux open source space, but in the technology industry. And that is damn impressive to watch. It is really cool to see that, especially as somebody who's been using Red Hat since one of the options in the installer was Pirate Speak for the language. Did you ever see that? That was really, there was a time during the Red Hat installation where you could choose Pirate Speak as your system's localized language, and damn, that was cool. So kind of like Noah, Red Hat did play a big part in my life when it came time to get serious about long-term server Linux and move away from Gentoo. And Red Hat and CentOS played a very important role there, and then later quickly replaced by Ubuntu as fast as I possibly could. But I for a very long time, I managed a glorious amount of systems using the Red Hat Enterprise software management system. And several times, I took advantage of some of that premium Red Hat support and was always very glad to have it. And that's another part of the Red Hat story that really doesn't get talked about a lot anymore in the age of Rackspace and Ting, where you have a whole new level of customer service. But back in the early 2000s and late 90s, Red Hat sort of made their name by having actually good support. Like, you talked to engineers that knew what the hell they were talking about, and every now and then they would play the blame game with the hardware OEM. But they were pretty good about, if the hardware OEM bounced it back to Red Hat would then just own it and make sure it got solved. And there was a rig that I had installed for years, Noah, that was super old in terms of Linux. I mean, this might have even been back in the kernel 2.2 days. And you know what? I came back to this machine, I want to say 3 years after it was installed. All had been managed from the Red Hat Enterprise Network, so it was all up to date and secure. And that's another thing that's really impressive. But I had this whole thing, really kind of just isolated off in a closet, being managed by the Red Hat Enterprise Network. It took a ferry trip and a 2-hour drive to even get to the rig. And one day it went down, and I got there, and I called them up, and they stayed on the phone with me the entire time to make sure that machine was back up and running. And that was even including a conference call to Dell and all of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I walked away from that going, because I was the only guy in the entire company for this bank that could solve this problem. And there was no other senior person I could go to because I was the Linux guy. And there was nobody I could ask because I was off on this island literally by myself. And to have them stick with me like that, I realized, I think back then, I don't know what the prices are now, but I think it was called Red Hat Enterprise Linux Server AS, and I think it was a $5,000 license. And I remember scoffing at the time because I was trying to sell my company on switching to Linux from Windows, and then, oh, by the way, the price tag for the OS is $5,000. But I sold them on support, and I told them it was going to be a good support, and I felt like that call right there was worth a few $1,000s for that company.
They didn't make a liar out of you.
So, yeah.
I want to go back to something. I don't just want to fly by. You made a comment about switching to Ubuntu, and I don't just want to fly by that. Red Hat is going to stay at the top of my list of the companies I'm most thankful for. However, we wouldn't be where we are today with desktop Linux, and as many people that are using Linux today wouldn't be using Linux today if it wasn't for Canonical and Ubuntu.
No kidding.
And while I still Red Hat will always hold a special place in my heart. You'll notice the computer I had at System 76 had Ubuntu. Yeah. Every time I've reloaded a machine at the studio, it's some variant of Ubuntu.
When we have a broadcast machine that we're going to go on the air and do an all-day live stream from, it's Ubuntu.
Yeah, and so Ubuntu has really become, much as I like Red Hat, much as I like Fedora, Ubuntu has really become my go-to de facto distro when installing stuff, and simply because their focus is on a really stable, usable desktop environment, and that appeals to me.
Yeah.
And so, I tend to use CentOS for servers, but if it's a desktop and it's not mine that I'm using personally, it usually has Ubuntu on it, and so. It wasn't something that immediately came to my mind, but then once you started talking about it, really, I don't want to fly by that. I'm super thankful.
And I have to say,
Ubuntu
too,
Canonical.
from my perspective, what Ubuntu has remained for me, even though I've tried very hard to make it not, is it's the distro I go to when I'm going to switch somebody to Linux for the first time. And I tried to go Anagros, and it worked for a couple of rigs, and it's still working for one of them. But I have to tell you, there is just no beating Ubuntu for all of those edge cases that new switchers run into. There is just things like small things like little esoteric applications that just have the best shot of working under Ubuntu, or the really, to be honest, the update cadence is just more appropriate for an end user. It's not too slow, and it's not too aggressive like maybe Anagros is, or too slow like a CentOS release would be. And so I continue to find that Ubuntu offers that best chance of switching a new user to Linux that has no experience, and I mean maybe very, very little computer experience too, is just a savvy computer user, but never really uses the underlying essentials of an OS.
Mm-hmm. And do you think?
And I find that if I want to give them a machine and then not have to play tech support, and just basically they can manage it completely on their own, and even maybe add things like Dropbox or Spotify completely on their own, Ubuntu is my best shot of delivering that.
And do you think that it requires a little less tweaking? Like for example, with Ubuntu.
No, I mean what I end up doing is I really have found that Ubuntu Mate 15.10 is the go-to now, because it includes Mate Tweak, which really then can very quickly model their old desktop paradigm, either Mac or Windows that they're switching from. So, which if you think about it, Ubuntu Mate is a huge tweak from the base. I'm not going. Yeah. Here's the thing, Noah, and I know you are probably right, and I know you've deployed an order of magnitude more of Unity desktops than I have. But I just kind of feel like I don't have any allegiance to Unity, and I don't have any faith that Unity of today is going to be much like Unity of tomorrow. So I could why bother changing their whole desktop paradigm when I can deploy Mate Edition and then just select their old paradigm and let them ride that for a few years while this whole thing settles out. And then the next time they get a new rig, which will probably be 3 years, 4 years down the road, that's the time to maybe switch it up a bit.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that makes sense. And I very much like and support the idea of the Mate desktop. I guess the thing that appeals to me about Unity for a new user is that little dock on the side. Just seems like it makes it really easy to just find things. And the other thing is, too, you remember a couple weeks ago you were talking about how you said you were trying to walk somebody that you switched through to find a specific application, and you said, well, it's in here, and you were using GNOME, and so she was trying to search for them through the menus. It's kind of nice to be able to tell them just hit the super key and type XYZ, and then it pops up.
Yeah.
So
if you give me a Unity desktop the way System 76 tweaks it, out of the box, which I could do myself, but they've deployed so many of them now, and it's interesting because you and I, we may not have noticed it, but while we were at System 76, we did catch it, because you had a rig that you had recently reloaded yourself, and then they had a rig they just imaged from their official System 76 image process, which is badass. And
my laptop is what they did.
Noah's like, this is so funny because Noah's laptop is an older System 76 machine, and he's like, can I get this re-image? And I'm like, dude, why do you want to get your machine reloaded? He's like, think about it. I want to have the official System 70. I want to walk away here with the official System 76 deployed image, which is interesting that, how old is that laptop? 3 years old?
Yeah, it's old. It is now. It's older than that because it was back when Matt was doing the how-to segments at the end, and I decided I had to order a laptop.
Yeah,
So
it's
a
really
couple
old.
years.
Yeah, and so here's the thing, though. That image, you and I didn't really stop to appreciate the fact that they deployed that image, and it deployed completely flawless. Like, everything works. Like, even though it's an old machine, like, it is a really cool imaging system. And so Noah gets it deployed on his rig. So we've got a system we've installed and a brand new System 76 image. And one of the first things we notice is online search results are turned off. You almost make it immediately obvious when you type something in because it looks so much cleaner on the System 76 rig. And I realized, okay, that's obviously something you've got to always do because just looking at them side by side, it was clearly cleaner and exactly the results you wanted on one rig and junk on the other rig. Now, if you change all those things in Unity, it's not a bad desktop at all.
And what drew my attention to it was I went to shut it off. And I was like, hey, this is already out. And then it was funny because usually it would just be one of those things where I would speculate. I'd be like, I think System 76 turns off online search results. But, because we're there, I just look over at the guy who set up that imaging system and I'm like, hey, did you guys turn off online search results? And he's like, yeah, it's really annoying, isn't it? And I'm like, yes, that's the first thing I do when I get into Unity, because otherwise it caches all those stupid results and then I can't get anything done and it pollutes my desktop and I get pictures of boobs and bras and all sorts of weird things
I've got
coming
other
up
things
when
too.
all I wanted to do was burn a DVD or copy a DVD and I see bras on my desktop.
So this is kind of my tangent way of saying that I'm thankful for Ubuntu Mate and the hard work that Wimpy and the team over there have put into it. I think it's a really cool project. It's been interesting to sort of watch it develop because Wimpy's been coming on Linux Unplugged every week now for a while, which I'm also very thankful for, and talking about it. We're going to talk more about it a little bit in the show, but to watch that and sort of see the insights that have gone into creating this distribution has also been another reason that I've been deploying it, and I'm very thankful for it. So it's really cool. Ubuntu.
Lots of attention to detail.
Yeah, I really like that. All right, Noah. So that was sort of the quote unquote news that we have. Those are newsworthy thankful items, and now we're just going to get all into a love fest. So that's all the news. We're about to get seriously thankful up in this business, but first I want to tell you about something else I'm thankful for, and that is System 76. They make powerful computers to help you do more and go further to unleash your potential based around Ubuntu. I mean, these are serious rigs they put a lot of thought into, built right here in the US of A and serviced right here in the US of A and shipping worldwide. Go to system76.com. Tell them the Linux Action Show sent you, and we'd really appreciate that. And you can go get yourself a really nice rig. I cannot stop thinking about that Oryx Pro. Yeah, I mean, really, I want it right here on my desk so badly. Man, I hope they send us an official one to review because I got my hands on I think it's like a really close release candidate version, and it was super slick. No, are you still rocking the image you deployed on your machine from Systems?
Heck yeah.
Yeah?
So yeah, what we didn't really elaborate in the last segment, but basically, I got to System 76 and I'm like, I have a bright idea. Let me wipe all the data off my laptop, and just so I can say that I've imaged my laptop while I'm at System 76. Because when I bought that machine, it shipped with I think 11 something, and I'm like, I'm not going to run in distro that old. So I was like, well, I can install 1404. I can have the latest LTS. And when I imaged it from System 76, it was amazing. Not to mention, it took what would you say? 45 seconds?
I was going to say exactly 45 seconds, yeah.
I mean, it was insanely fast.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievably fast.
Yeah, that was really cool. So go over to system76.com. Oh, and something that we didn't capture, but the Ratel Pro, which is a machine I've talked a lot about because it comes with integrated graphics with an open expansion slot, so you could upgrade dedicated graphics, 6 months down the road or never or whatever you want if you decide gaming is important to you. Something we haven't been able to clearly tell you because it's really hard to visualize on their website is it is extremely short. I don't know how to tell you otherwise. I mean, it is a very compact machine. Like it is, how would you describe this?
I would say it's the size of an Xbox turned on its side. If you turn an Xbox on its side, that's about how tall it is.
Yeah, I was when I saw it in person, I was shocked. And then all of a sudden, click, all this, I want that in my TV media center. I want this, this would even fit in the Rover. Now all of a sudden, my world is completely changed. So go over to system76.com. You can check out the Ratel and a bunch of other great desktops. And a big thanks to System 76 for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. Okay, Noah. So I want to talk about a few projects that we use here in production at Jupiter Broadcasting that are not only just great apps, but in my opinion, better than pretty much anything on the market. And I want to start with Simple Screen Recording, a recorder. It has been an app picked before on the show. Simple Screen Recorder is a simple app in the sense that it's easy to use and the UI is not that confusing. I have it up on the screen right now. But it's not really simple in terms of what it can do. Not only does it have really slick record the entire screen with OpenGL accelerated support, but you can draw a rectangle or a box on your screen and capture just like the video window. You can follow your cursor for like how-tos and demos. It's also capable of recording your system audio. So if you're trying to capture a video, for example, you can grab the audio of that. It supports recording to different formats at different speeds with different quality settings. It's faster than using VLC or even FFmpeg to grab your whole screen. It is capable of recognizing common driver misconfigurations in the Linux desktop and helps you correct them. It synchronizes audio and video properly, which is something that often doesn't work when you're using VLC to record your desktop. It can reduce the video frame rate if your computer is too slow, which is kind of nice because it still helps you capture something for that whole how-to. You don't always need the maximum frame rate. Why I like it a lot, though, is I think this is a first-class screen capture app. We use it consistently in Jupiter Broadcasting production for the Unfiltered show. Multi-threaded is a critical aspect of this application for me because so many of these types of apps are not multi-threaded. And so if I'm recording audio, recording video, playing back a video stream, and my machine is syncing files and doing other things in the background, multi-threaded is a fundamental requirement for a production application for me. It does a fantastic job at capturing audio playback from video, and it has multiple ways to select the area I want to capture. It's a secret weapon for the Unfiltered show for getting the video streams by certain news outlets that don't make downloading or publication or embedding or anything like that possible. The only way to get it is by doing a screen capture, and Simple Screen Recorder is the way we do it. It's also a handy tool here on Linux Action Show for how-to videos and things like that. When we need some B-roll of the desktop or something like that, we can use this to capture that B-roll, and then we just roll it right into the show. So Simple Screen Recorder, it's available for Linux, and the thing I love about it is I've tried out a lot of the different, like Camtasia on Windows, iShowU on the Mac, and the other Mac Capture ones. They're all nice, and they have some great features that are really cool. But when you just need some great screen recording, something that is really aware of Linux driver config issues and supports OpenGL, Simple Screen Recorder. I'm extremely thankful for this free tool that we use all the time. And on top of all that, icing on top of the pumpkin pie here, the developer is super friendly. He's come on Linux Unplugged before, I believe, in the past, and he's very, very cool with feedback and all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice from that perspective.
So I've been aware of Simple Screen Recorder. Can you tell me how it compares to Kazam?
Yeah, Kazam. That's what I was trying to play. So for me, one of the things I really want in this is I don't want a lot of app UI. I don't want a lot of. I don't need a production studio. I'm not going to combine my incredible screencast in one application. I don't need a lot of effects. What I really need is I need something that's really smart with X, that was created with X11 and Linux drivers in mind. I need something that is familiar intimately with the Linux audio stack, that understands ALSA and Pulse and all of that kind of stuff in different devices, and understands how to capture the audio from a playback without capturing any other audio source on the system, right? And then that's big. That's a big deal because, my Telegram can be going off and things like that.
Yeah.
So I need something that remains really just sort of click, 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 done. So in about 3 clicks, because my settings don't change that much, I have an MKV file that is beautiful resolution, 60 frames a second, capture of whatever I want on my desktop, and then I just close the window and I'm done. I drop that in the sync folder and I'm good to go. That clip is completed. I don't have to, I don't feel like I'm in a big full suite of application that, has this goal to make desktop capture possible. It is just something that is quick and simple. And that's why I like it. Boom, Noah, because it's just a quick tool.
I've used Kazam before, but after listening to your sales pitch there, I think I'm sold on giving Simple Screen Recorder.
The format is user selectable, which I also really like because I'm picky when it comes to that kind of stuff. I think there's an application that you and I could both probably just put a little love towards, little thanks towards Mumble. Mumble, the open source VoIP solution, is a critical production tool here at Jupiter Broadcasting. It's low latency, high quality voice chat software, which they really kind of created for gaming, but it's great for podcasting, and all kinds of stuff. And I've honestly been a critic of it too. I think it has its quirks, but there are tons of reasons to also love Mumble itself. It sounds good. You can choose your codec. You can choose really nice sounding codecs. It offers great organizational ability, so we're able to have on-air channels and staging channels and air check channels and private channels and game dedicated channels, et cetera, with different administrative abilities. It allows for recording, so you could actually use it to record your podcast and get local recordings. And we use it for every single freaking episode of Linux Unplugged to bring our virtual login. And also for Tech Talk Today all the time. And I'm extremely grateful for that. And also, shout out to Blaster and the Mumble team, who really, work very hard on this.
I have talked to a couple people that were primarily TeamSpeak users and came over to Mumble, and they were kind of sold instantly. And they said, we've always used TeamSpeak, but actually Mumble has a lot of things we like a little bit better. And there's always going to be people that like the proprietary solutions. But the point is, when you start to get a split where people have no allegiance to open source software, they don't really care if they're using Linux or not, and those people are still choosing the open source alternative over the proprietary one, that tells me something. And then the biggest thing, I think, for me, which almost has, if you think about it, really has very little to do with Mumble as a software, but Mumble has allowed me to develop a really close group of friends that exist outside the IRC, that exist outside the shows. It's a sect of the JB community that we just like to sit and talk about geek stuff and Linux. And I would say the majority of us probably wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Mumble, because a lot of us wouldn't bother to install software if it wasn't, at least available as open source, if not available, in the repository themselves. And, there's a lot of people that are in the group. Xerox comes to mind. He simply just wouldn't install something like TeamSpeak, and so we would just never get a chance to talk to him. And so, I think that it has opened a lot of doors, and it runs on like everything. I mean, there's an Android client. It's unofficial, but there's an Android client. It runs on my laptop just fine. It ran on that little Sony tiny little thing that I had. It's just
there's lots of phone clients. There is obviously the Linux client, Windows and Mac client. There's you can run the server on FreeBSD. We run it on a DigitalOcean Droplet now,
which by the way is super easy to spin up. Not that what the Droplet is too, but the getting Murmur set up is literally like a 30-second ordeal. Like it's super easy.
One of the things I also, we have the Mumble mod team that I'm really appreciative of. But something else that's really cool is producer Rotten Corpse created like a setup guide that makes, kind of a little bit more straightforward to set up what is kind of quirky software for some. And so for Linux Unplugged, for a long time now, every single guest that we have brought into Linux Unplugged has been brought in via Mumble. And I'm really proud of that, because what that means is when somebody wants to come on and talk about something on the Linux Unplugged show, they have to use the open source solution. And the show's reached the point now where it's worth like the hassle of people at different companies to figure out how to install Mumble, set it up, and connect, and then they have it. And then we're kind of like showing them, like, look at the software you can be using. And we have gotten feedback from people that have started using it as a team chat system for their company after they came on and talked on Linux Unplugged, which is extremely cool. And I wish I could talk about it, because I think it's a really neat kind of way that the show has been able to kind of push Mumble in a direction that has been really kind of nice for a lot of people that we maybe didn't consider it before. And it's really cool to bring all those people in using open source software running on top of a Linux server for our Linux podcast. I do like that quite a bit. While we're talking about media stuff, we got to get to a more serious kind of piece of gear that we use. And by gear, I mean software. And that's obviously FFmpeg. I think I've mentioned FFmpeg before, but holy crap, FFmpeg is a Swiss Army knife. It is unbelievably useful for the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. FFmpeg is what we send all our stuff through, and it also is the magic piece of software that powers things such as, VLC, Handbrake, Plex, Blender, the entire YouTube encoding system backend, things like the audio playback and video playback and Google Chrome and Linux versions of Firefox. Graphical front ends for FFmpeg have been developed, including Avanti, Xmedia Recode, JavaC, Java Wrapper for OpenCV, lots of stuff. FFmpeg is used by FFD Show, LEV filters, GStreamer, FFmpeg plugins, Purion, OpenMax. It is an incredibly useful tool. Our friends over at Linux Gamecast use it to capture and stream their entire show produced under Linux using FFmpeg live streamed up to Twitch. And so not only does it power tons of tools that we love, but it's one of the most critical pieces of machinery in the Jupiter Broadcasting factory. Every single episode is encoded with FFmpeg, and it powers tons of critical tools we use on the back end and on the front end to make these shows possible. And so FFmpeg, to me, is one of the number one projects that when the Patreon gets to the point where we can sustain funding some open source projects, I want to send some love to. Because they have continually gotten better, including at one point what was a huge transition for us was the inclusion of ProRes capabilities. And now recently I'm come to understand there is some magic they can do with Audible audiobooks as well. Like, it's just one of these projects. It just keeps getting better and better. Noah, and I know you've used it quite a bit as well.
Yeah. In fact, one of the very first times that I went out on my own to cover a conference, I think it was, I'm trying to remember, it was either Scale or no, it wasn't Scale. It was LinuxCon, I think, the very first LinuxCon. The first time I ever sent a remote stream back to you, this is before OBS was a thing, Alan had set up a separate stream for me to use, and the only way I could get video to it was with FFmpeg. It was the only thing capable. And so I captured from my little webcam that I had and sent that to a separate stream, and then you picked that up and rebroadcasted it. And that was the first time that I was ever like, this may be a command line tool and it may feel a little wonky, but it is really a professional grade tool. And like you said, its uses are really limited by your imagination, by creativity, because there are so many different things you can do with FFmpeg. And I think the biggest thing that I appreciate about FFmpeg, the thing I'm most thankful about, I think it really exemplifies what, a free and open source tool that is just light years better than anything else available.
And it's on so many different platforms too, which is super nice. Also, another tool available on just about every single platform out there that is another critical sort of like tool bag tool on the command line, YouTube DL. You guys probably know about it because unfortunately it's getting more and more popular, which kind of scares me. But it's a small command line program to download videos from YouTube and a whole bunch of other sites. They say a few more sites, but it's a lot. And it uses Python, and it's not platform specific, which is really nice. And it's one of my best friends. I wish I could kiss YouTube DL on the lips. And maybe slip it a little tongue, because it's one of the best tools of the year, in my opinion. It supports,
I was going to ask about tongue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you bet. It supports way more than just YouTube, and it makes it possible for Jupiter Broadcasting to grab clips from a wide range of sources, store them offline for immediate playback while on air, not having to wait for Flash Player to crash my entire browser where I have to sit there and go, oh, hold on, let me reload. No, I can pull them down, I store them in a folder, I sync them across all the machines for production, and they're available for immediate playback, which makes live production of a show where there's a lot of different media assets and you're just flowing from one to one without any edits, makes it basically possible. Not only that, but they make it available to transcode and convert clips to different formats. I could pull down just the WebM version if I want, so I could use all free software to watch YouTube videos. Or I could pull down an MP4 or an MKV. And the developers are quick to issue updates to fix issues with reliability that are caused by some of the commercial sites that you can download files from. YouTube-DL is an amazing tool. It is really well-written software. Lots of great options. And if you want to have a completely flash-free experience on the Linux desktop, this is a key tool to accomplish that, because you can pull down tons of Flash videos with this into formats that you'd rather watch it under. And if you combine it with Livestreamer, you can even watch live streams that are wrapped in Flash without having to use Flash. So YouTube DL and Livestreamer essentially make it possible to live a completely Flash-free life, but still enjoy Flash-encumbered content on the web. Really nice tools, excellent for Linux users, whether you're in production or not. What do you think, Noah?
I think that I was a skeptic at first, and I was more a fan of browser extensions. And then I started to realize that, if it doesn't run in a browser, I don't have to have the browser running. And so if there's a large video file, I can start it in the background, and I have Guake always running, and I run it in a Guake tab, and it starts downloading, and I can close the browser and open the browser and go back to working, and it just sits there in the background and works. And it's gotten to the point now where I use it daily to pull stuff off of YouTube, especially when I think that that YouTube themselves are gonna pull that content off the internet. I can just grab it real quick and
The
store it.
other thing that's nice about it is if you want to go grab something long off YouTube, which could be one of our shows or it could be anything else that gets posted up there that's kind of long, you don't want to sit at your computer, but you'd rather watch it like using Plex or MB or XBMC, you can use YouTube DL to just then go through it on your media share and watch it on your TV. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. Or, so say you get one of these long videos and you just need a soundbite. You just need something like really short.
I think that we should all make those businesses fail.
And say that was in like a 2-hour episode of the Linux Action Show and you wanted just that quote. Well, you could use this program to get it. Now, I call it a VidMux. I don't know exactly how you say it. It's AVIDEMUX. And it is a free editor designed for simple cutting of just grabbing a certain area. And it is one of my favorite production tools. We talk about video editing under Linux all the time, and we talk about Lightworks and P2V and why these new online editors are super important, and really we need to get better and better there. But honestly, the bulk of editing, if you just have like some camera phone video, you want to cut the ends off where you like tilted the camera up or down, or you said something stupid just at the very beginning, or you have a clip where you just want to be able to go get a soundbite out of it, something like that, AvidMux is perfect for that because you can select your in and outs in a video, you select your range, it's aware of limitations of the H.264 format and can help you work with keyframes. You can select the area and then you can copy it directly out without any quality loss. Or you could do things like maybe tweak the audio to normalize it so the audio is more consistent. Or you could extract just the audio. Or you could take, say, like an FLV file, like a Flash video, and you could use AvidMux to cut just the area you want and save it as a VP8 in a WebM file. So it's a really, really powerful tool that makes simple in and out editing possible. And I use it every single day, all the time. It is very useful. We even used it while at System 76 for some of the stuff we played on the live stream to just mark the in and outs. And I know you were kind of new to it, Noah, but what were your impressions when we were trying it there live?
I was a little skeptical, but once you get the workflow down, and there's a couple little quirks, but really once you get the workflow down, the back end of it is amazing. And we had this weird audio popping thing from the files that were coming out of
Lightworks.
Lightworks for whatever reason. And so we ran them through AvidMux and no problems. It immediately cleaned up. And that was really helpful, especially, and again, because it's free and open source, because it's available in the repo, I didn't have to call the company and ask them for a download link. I didn't have to activate the software and enter my 64-digit serial key. And none of that. I just installed a sudo apt-get install AvidMux, and there it was. Boom, done.
Yeah, Rikai says whatever reason is probably because it's Lightworks. Yeah, we've run into that issue before, and so AvidMux is a great tool to fix that. Or we'll have clips that we play that just audio is all over the place, and one of the options is you can re-encode the audio and normalize it to negative 3 dB and things like that. It's a really cool tool, and you're coming into the holidays now, and a lot of us will record some video, and there's just maybe a segment of the video we want, or we want to chop the ends off and then re-encode it to something smaller. This is a tool available to do that, and you can go grab it, and I just think it's an absolutely fantastic open source project. The UI, I don't love it. One of the things I do appreciate is they have GTK and Qt versions available. I do like that a lot, but like Noah says, there are some quirks, but I have used it for so long now, so frequently that to me, I just fly right through it. I just use all the keyboard commands.
The reality is that all applications have quirks. We seem to be more sensitive to UI quirks than applications that crash every once in a great while or something like that.
Yeah. Now, speaking of things that crash from time to time, but have been a huge use for us in production and on live platforms. And no, I kind of feel like I should let you take this one. We got to give it to OBS, or the Open Broadcaster software. It has been a tool that's really come into its own this year, starting in April, where we used it in one of our biggest live events, down to just our live event in System 76. Not always flawless, though.
So let's just say that somebody hadn't listened to that episode. Here's a quick recap. The guy that was originally I was trying to find a Linux broadcasting solution, and after talking with a couple of our teammates, a lot of them kind of felt that it wasn't really worth pursuing the effort, and we should just let the proprietary solution take the cake. And so I didn't do any more prep. I didn't bother shipping a machine over. I didn't bother doing any of that. And we arrive, and it turns out the guy that was going to provide the proprietary solution and the hardware had some personal issues and wasn't able to be there. And so now we found out about this, like, I don't know, what was it, Chris, Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah.
Before the Friday that we're supposed to be there. And like, I could tell that from the very first time that Chris and I had a conversation, it was bad news, because the look in Chris's eye was that of I give up. Like, it was just a look of, I have so much going on this week, and things are the cost
This is like the most important thing, and we just blew the rod.
And it was funny, and he just kind of looked at me. He's like, "Well, I'm going to do TechSnap. You're going to do TechSnap." He's like, "Well, I'm going to go do TechSnap, see if he can figure something out." And he went in the studio and shut the door, and that was the end of that. So Q5 and gosh, who else was working with me? Because Alan was doing TechSnap with you. Oh, Rakai. We got Rakai to leave the house. So we're all sitting down, and you're like, use anything in the house. You can use anything in the studio except my personal machine. Don't touch it unless you absolutely have to. And I'm like, all right. So we take all these other machines that we're trying to hack parts off, and we can't get it to work. So, all right, well, let's go to Best Buy and see if we can buy some parts to make this work. And we try that, and that didn't work. So eventually you come out from doing TechSnap, and we're like, yeah, we're going to need your personal machine, Chris. And you're like, then how am I going to edit shows? How am I going to do show prep? In fact, how am I going to get all my data? That's not going to work. We better just go buy a motherboard, even though we didn't have the money to buy a motherboard to build this computer.
We crowdfunded it, didn't we? Like,
yeah, we did.
Everybody kind of bought like different parts.
By
crowdfunding, I mean like everybody that was here in the studio just like bought different parts.
Well, yeah, what we were going to do was we were just going to split it between Alan, you, and me. Yeah. And then what ended up happening was, because Fry's, being the great store that they are, we get to the register and they're like, yeah, we can't do that. You can't split between.
Oh, that's right.
So then Alan bought the processor, I bought the motherboard, you bought the RAM and the hard drive and the whatever. So we buy all of this stuff and get it home. This is Thursday, mind you, Thursday. So we have to drive Friday to set up for Linux Fest Northwest, and Thursday night at 9, 10 at night, we're starting this project.
Yeah.
And get to like 4 or 5 in the morning, and we get it done, we get it up, we install OBS, and boom, we had an open source broadcasting solution that ran, knock on wood, the entire weekend without ever having a real a serious problem that whole weekend.
Yeah, we basically had no other option, because there was no way we could buy a Mac and buy Wirecast and buy all the HDMI capture cards that work on a Mac and make it work in that time. So we had to go this route. And if you recall, Noah, I think the build that made it all work was just a couple of days old at the time. And like, we got him by the skin of our teeth, because it was like...
On Monday, I was trying to install OBS to see if it would work. Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, it did not work. Wednesday night at around 8 o'clock, they released some sort of an update, and boom, everything started working. And I was like, all right. And I was testing it with a webcam at the time. And so I had this tiny little webcam that I was playing with, and I was trying to get something to work. And finally, all of a sudden, it pops up, it goes to the stream, and I go running up to Chris's office like a little child. And I'm like, Chris, it works. Look at the laptop. We're streaming. And he's like, that's great. Get out of my office. Go do something. I'm busy. I'm like, all right. We got it to work.
That was awesome.
We built it. We got it working. And then we took those parts and put it into an entire rack, which we've used to do outboard events. And so we did scale this way, we did self this way, we did the System 76. In fact, System 76 is yet another testament to why using software like AvidMux and OBS is beneficial, because we just grabbed whatever computer was available and installed the software.
Yeah, there's not a big, when it's in the repo or a PPA away or in the AUR, it enables a level of deployment that is, it's even different than just having to go to like adobe.com and logging into Creative Cloud, installing the Creative Cloud client, then logging into Creative Cloud again, and then choosing install from the Creative Client little thing, and then having it download. Like, that is a pain in the ass when you can go apt-get install OBS, and like it's pretty much installed. Apt-get install FFmpeg, whatever. Like, it's powerful when you can do it that way. And so what OBS does is it brings it all together for us in a way that puts a front end on top of FFmpeg. It puts a front end on top of doing streaming and camera switching that is very competitive with some of the commercial solutions out there. It's not 100% there yet. It doesn't do everything that we need, but it's getting to the point now where it almost doesn't matter, because there's starting to become some hardware solutions that are getting around the $1,000, $1,500 price point that could do some of the things we use Wirecast for, and then feed it into an OBS machine And all of a sudden, you've completely removed the Mac from the picture. You've completely removed Wirecast. You're doing hardware-based switching, going into an OBS machine or an OBS machine, I guess they call it, that is managing all the streams. I mean, I think it is entirely possible that if we do another one of these episodes in 2016, it's possible. I don't know because of funding, but it's possible that we could be doing all of this right now, all of the same level of video production, using a hardware switcher and Linux. And
so cool.
And it's because OBS is and we interviewed the guy behind it. It is because it is really finally getting to a point. And if you're doing like Twitch streaming, or you have some basic video capture you want to do for like a YouTube channel and things like this, you should look into this because you could produce your content much faster in real time. Hey, I'm giving you the secret sauce right here, using free and open source software. And
you
it's
notice
really nice.
notice the number one bullet point under why Noah is thankful in the show notes is potentially removing one of the biggest roadblocks for JB going all Linux.
Yeah,
And that
it's
is
so
the
close.
number one thing I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, you can literally turn any machine. Well, I shouldn't say any machine, but almost any machine made this year into a broadcasting machine.
Yeah, it really is nice. So it is fantastic, and shortcomings or not, it's getting very, very close. Now, this next thing I think is maybe more important long term, and I was really advocating for something like this, and then the Linux Foundation delivered. And Heartbleed has really kind of reminded us why something like the Core Infrastructure Project or Core Infrastructure Initiative is vital. Heartbleed was an embarrassment for open source, and so in the wake of that, the Linux Foundation and other exploits, the Linux Foundation created the Core Infrastructure Initiative, and essentially a lot of the companies that are making millions and millions of dollars off of open source, like Amazon and Cisco and Dell and Facebook and Google and HP and IBM and Salesforce and Rackspace and Microsoft and VMware, Hawaii, Fujitsu, Bloomberg, Hitachi, NetApp, Qualcomm, all of them have joined in and are help funding this initiative to give money to really key fundamental open source projects. And they have advisors on the board like Alan Cox and Bruce Schneier, which I respect. Greg K.H. is also on the board. Matt Green, Ted So. Tom Ritter also. A bunch of really great, sharp people on the board behind projects that are extremely critical to the open source infrastructure, like OpenSSL. That if they weren't protected properly and weren't maintained properly, really commercial companies wouldn't be able to risk using them and relying on them. So that's why I think it's a really critical project. And so I'm thankful for the Core Initiative project. All right, Noah. I have something that I didn't really think about until we got all the way to the end here. And I realized, I don't know if you could really say it's a 2015 thing, but I think at some point we crossed a threshold with Wayland. And now it seems like Wayland support is becoming obvious. It's really, really taking off. I cite an article in Wikipedia that covers all of the things that have implemented Wayland support in the last year or so. And it's remarkable. It is really it's astounding how many different projects. I have them all listed in the show notes. But the big ones. Plasma 5 Desktop, the KDE frameworks, of course GNOME, with early support since 2013. Mate is it when they go GTK3 only, they're going to be good to go. KWin, obviously, of course, all of the GTK toolkit. Clutter is Wayland compliant. Qt5 has complete Wayland support. I mean, just across the board, so many different things have lined up with Wayland support. Like, it's truly arrived. Now, it's not perfect yet. We're not done yet. It's not fully implemented yet. But it's refreshing to see that the path to Wayland, after being long and treacherous, the Linux users have really kind of, and an open source community have come together in sort of a group collaborative effort to move towards Wayland and the future of the Linux graphics stack. Something about me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we have a long time that X was kind of has kind of been an outdated thing, and so it's really refreshing that we are starting to move forward, right? And so Wayland was a necessary evil. I don't think anyone is really excited about replacing key cornerstones of the Linux desktop, but anyone that's ever locked their screen and went to unlock it, music starts playing and you can't mute it understands. Anyone who's ever done that, if anyone, so in other words, anyone who has ever used Linux in college understands why Wayland is a necessary evil.
Well put. Well, heartfelt statement there, Noah. Also, just kind of a newsworthy note. I guess I could have moved this earlier up in the show. Wayland Protocols version 1.0 is released. Wayland Protocols are an independent repository of the protocols that are now marching to their own release schedule. This also reflects a change in development tactics that the protocol additions and modifications aren't necessarily implemented yet in the Weston reference compositor. The Wayland Protocol 1.0 release includes support for full-screen shell input method, Linux DMA buff, pointer gestures, presentation timing, text input, and XDG shell. All these protocols are considered unstable for the version 1.0 release, with no protocols being declared stable yet in the repository. And it's something that Phoronix reported on last week when they reported that the Wayland protocols will be split from Wayland and Weston itself, which is going to help increase development pace there. So a little bit of news for Wayland too. It's getting serious, you guys. It's getting real serious. So maybe we'll see if we do another episode like this in a year. We'll see where that's at. But I'm just super thankful that we're actually getting like broad spectrum cohesive acknowledgement that this is the direction to go. I mean, even though we're not on Wayland yet, it's the foregone conclusion now, and it never has seemed closer. And there's going to be some distributions, starting with their next release, they'll be shipping with Wayland turned on by default, and that's going to be a big deal. All right, Noah, that's the Linux Action Show's very holiday look at some of our favorite open source projects that we're thankful for. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But before we get out of here, we want to do a giveaway. I'll give you the details about the giveaway coming up just a little bit in the feedback segment. But first, we're going to cover some emails. And man, I get a lot of crap for this segment last week, but Wolf B writes in, and he says, "Hi, Chris and Noah. As always, I love the show, but I was a bit thrown by Chris's comments about PTV being the only viable video editing tool for Linux," which I stand by. "I've used KDN Live with great success. It's very stable, great features, is easy to use, and is simply a great project." I agree. But even KDN Live is not only a great option. There's also OpenShot. Sure, I prefer KDN Live over OpenShot, but I've done some production under OpenShot, and it's a pretty decent too. Frankly, I've wondered for quite some time why folks slam Linux video editing as a shortcoming. KDN Live has been a great video. It's been great, and so has OpenShot. Then Lightworks came. Now, while I do not like the flow of Lightworks, it's a powerful tool. All of these tools are fully capable for video production. Keep up the great shows. So here is my takeaway, and Wolf kind of does this sort of casually, and it's sort of what offends me the most about when people comment on video editing under Linux, is he just sort of casually throws in how great these tools are. So it sounds like he primarily uses KDN Live, which is a great tool. And he says, there's also OpenShot. Sure, I prefer KDN Live over OpenShot, but I have done some production under OpenShot, and it's pretty decent too. See, this throwaway line right there, where I've done some work under OpenShot, and it's pretty decent. What that really is saying is, I did a couple of things under OpenShot, but it pissed me off, so I went back to KDN Live. But, if you don't do what I did, it's fine. And and then that is how these tools sort of build momentum. Oh yeah, OpenShot's great. I mean, I switched over to this thing, but it's a pretty good tool. You should try it. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. And, oh no, yeah, that's not that bad. I mean, it's not good enough for me, but it's not that bad. You should try it. And we just do that over and over again. And the reality is I use all these tools all the time, and I'm trying to make my living using these tools. So I legitimately push these tools to their absolute maximum. And I am telling you, when I got excited about PTV last week, it wasn't because where it was at today. It wasn't because it was GTK based. It's because it is trying to reproduce the modern workflow of people who always record online. They're not recording to tape. They're not importing from tape and matching up multi-cameras. Everything's already digital. If there is multi-camera, each one has its own video file. They're bringing that into an editor. They want to have lossless real-time editing where they can apply effects in real time with GPU acceleration, and they want to spit out a mezzanine file and throw it into a high-quality encoder. That's the modern mass media production for the web and for local media production, for local affiliate TV stations. That's how they do the workflow. I've seen it. I've gone down to Como. I've seen how they do it there. I know how we do it. I know how other online YouTube channels do it. That is by far the largest market today of video editors. It's not the guys in Hollywood. It's not the people that are making Super Bowl commercials or anything like that. It's people that are making Kickstarter and Indiegogo videos and video podcasts and YouTube uploads and video podcasts for their company or promo videos for their cool thing on a spinning table. That That is the modern today video workflow. And I'm telling you, for that very common task, these tools don't stand up, not even Kdenlive and not OpenShot. I know that okay, if I had one show, if I did one show a week called the Linux Action Show, and I could take 2 to 3 days to produce that one show in post, and I could take an entire week prepping it, then I may be able to occasionally shit something out using OpenShot that I would not like the way the titling works. I would not like the way the workflow works. I would feel like it's an ancient product that hasn't been updated in several years, and to be honest with you, would have to take longer to do what I do. So there are tools out there that are good enough, and a lot of you can use them for the little things you're trying to make. But if you're trying to do something on multiple times a day on a production scale, these tools do not hold up. It's not like it's Crazy Chris on the podcast ranting and raving about this.
Right.
Look at the market dynamics. They bear this out. I'm telling you why the market dynamics reflect this. I'm not making something up here.
I guess that's kind of what rubbed me the wrong way too. Was it felt like people that some people get the idea that you've never used a video editor, and so that's why you don't know what to expect from one, Chris. And if you would just listen to the people that edit video, then you will know what to expect from a video editor.
And I think too, people are missing. I mean, like it seems like you could use anything from AvidMux to Lightworks and get results that you want. I mean, a lot of the content that runs in this show was edited by Noah under Lightworks. Like, it's totally doable.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the other way to look at it too, right? That just because we don't have to have the video editor for Linux, there can be a multitude, and competition is in fact good. I am thankful for Pitavi, even though I have not used it for a project, and to be completely honest with you, probably won't be using it anytime in the near future. And it's not because I think it's an inferior video editor. I think that Lightworks is exceptionally better. I have just become accustomed to the workflow of Lightworks. It works for me. I know how to get stuff done in it, and it runs under Linux, so that means it's good enough for me. And if at some point Pitavi starts to offer some huge competitive advantage that makes it much more compelling, then I'll probably switch. But in the meantime, let the OpenShot people who like OpenShot, let them use OpenShot and continue to make that better if somebody's still developing it, and let the Pitavi people continue to make that better. And the new one that we were talking about the other day, I can't remember the name because of course I have the memory of a goldfish, that has collaborative video editing. Let's let those guys continue to build out collaborative editing, and eventually we'll just have a plethora of video too. NovaCut, right?
Yeah, and I want to jump in on that, and I want to say, like, any tool that you can really learn and work into your workflow, you generally learn its quirks and how to make it do the job you need it to do. And so a lot of times, if you're not coming from the standpoint of higher end tools that are, maybe commercial and proprietary from Adobe or whatever, or Apple or whatever, and you're coming at it from, well, I have mastered this tool, it does what I needed to do, and yeah, it has a few quirks, but I know how to make them work. That's great. Congratulations. Have at it. Like, that works really well for you. All right, Noah, do you want to take? And thank you, Wolfie, for bringing it up. Wolfie, that was not directed at you. That was just, we got a lot of feedback about that, and I just thought it was a little. You're
just the one that sent it in via the contact form, and thus yours will end up in the feedback.
I love you, Wolf. Stick around, Wolf.
Erm writes in and he wants to talk about what some users really want. In last 392, you went off on a rant about the supply chain to get mobile devices working. I'm actually in the market for a new phone, and I'm waiting for Black Friday to see what deals I can get from Ting. I've come to the realization I don't really want a phone. What I want is a mobile computer that's about the size of a phone or a tablet that just so happens to make phone calls and get texts. There are enough smart people out there, so I'm sure somebody could come up with a mobile desktop environment system. I wonder if I'd be happy with XFCE or LXDE and a panel across the bottom with the show desktop icon in the center. Believe it or not, I think there is a distinction. I don't want Apple, Android, or Windows device. I want a machine that I can put whatever OS I want on there and keep it for the next 5 years, and then sudo apt-get update an LTS version of Xubuntu or even Pacman TAC SYU. I'm sick of all the spyware, crapware, and curated gardens. Some hypocrisy in this statement. I use apt-get, but then it just isn't the same. The lack of an upgrade path for older devices unless you want to risk breaking your device or risk breaking the law. The sad thing is all the major players don't want this. Google wants to lock you into their apps and data mine. Apple wants you to keep buying their overpriced hardware and use their app store. The carriers, in the case of Android devices, want you to have at least 1% of your RAM dedicated to pre-installed apps that you never use and find annoying, and want you to stay on their network. Manufacturers just want you to upgrade every couple of years.
So I know this is pretty long, but I would summarize
it
it by saying, in the end, he says it would benefit developers to have a more open platform. But then, of course, malware writers could probably get bigger attack surface. I think what he really wants is like open hardware combined with an OS that is sort of the dream platform we all want. And this is sort of spun off of the convergence rant where I was kind of saying, I think if this is something the public wants, there's people in a better position to deliver it. I don't know.
The line that kicks me, the line that really hit home with me, in fact, the reason that it got thrown in the feedback segment is he says, I don't really want a phone. What I want is a mobile computer that's the size of a phone that so happens to make phone calls and gets text. That I have been searching for said holy grail for years now, and I can't seem to find one. I would love to have a small little 7 or 10 inch device that I could have in my pocket that has a usable touchscreen interface that I could decrypt my encrypted files, that I could run actual LibreOffice on if I needed to, but for the most part that I could run Telegram and browse the internet on.
Right.
And if I could find that device, I would buy hundreds of them, and I would have, like, you know, the Charlie Brown thing where she smashes his piano and he goes to the closet and takes another one out. That would be me.
We'd talk about it, and we would have a dedicated segment on it. I mean, yeah, and maybe that'll happen sometime. I remain skeptical. You heard me playing a little bit of the music there, Noah, and that's the giveaway. That was the hint of what the giveaway is. Probably get us taken down on YouTube, but the Linux Action Show returns to Friday next week. Well, at least I think it does. It all goes to plan. It returns to Friday next week. I feel like if I actually commit to that, for some reason, it won't happen. But anyways, on the next Friday live show, I want to give away a copy of Trine 3 and maybe something else for Steam. It's a great new game for Linux. I mean, it has its detractors. I still think it's a lot of fun. And I think Trine is a gorgeous game, and it works on a whole range of hardware. So we'll be giving a giveaway of Trine 3 over on the jblive.tv stream. Join us Friday for that. You can go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get that in your local time. And if we have a good attendance and whatnot, we might even give away some extra games. And don't forget, too, if you want to get some free swag, just become a Patreon supporter with a successful November charge at patreon.com/today. And last but not least, we've also got the swag items over at or actually go to teespring.com/last US and last EU. I don't think we have the JB link set up yet, but we'll have links in the show notes. So there's all of that going on, a lot to cover. And to kind of get everybody back on the Friday schedule, I figured we'd do a giveaway. So I bought an extra copy of Trine 3 a while back when they had a sale, and I saved it in my inventory. So we'll do some giveaways on the next live stream. As far as I know, we're going to be on Friday, Noah. Who knows, though?
Sounds good to me.
It should be December 4th.
You and I can show up on Friday. Everyone else can show up when they darn well please.
Yeah. Yes, and Tyler, it also does include the Unfilter Patreon. So also, before we wrapped up, I just wanted to say thank you, too, to the Jupiter Broadcasting audience for their support, and to our sponsors. Obviously, DigitalOcean, Ting, and System 76 have been keeping this show going, and I very much do appreciate that. They are great sponsors for the audience that we've worked really hard to make sure are a good match, and so I also really appreciate you guys supporting them. But we do still run on a very tight budget, and we're still looking at ways of addressing that. But what we have been able to accomplish has really been enabled by their support and by the audience's support. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And I wanted to say a very special thank you to them and to the audience. Really, you guys, it's kind of epic that this show is getting near its 10th year. That's just crazy to my head. So I'm extremely thankful for all of that. Noah, is there anywhere you want to send people throughout the week, or maybe people could get a hold of you or something like that? You got any hot tips?
Well, here's my hot tip.
Yeah.
If people want input on the show, if you want to direct what happens on the Linux Action Show, you can give us feedback at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Click on the contact link and choose the Linux Action Show from the drop-down menu. Keep those brief and to the point. I've been trying to find time to get to email. If we see personal questions, try to forward those on to Chris if they're addressed at him, or if they're just a general question of how to do something, I try and get back to you. You can follow me on Twitter at Colonel Linux. This guy is at Chris LAS.
Totes. Or you can follow the network at Jupiter Signal. And also, don't forget another way you can contribute directly to the show. It's our subreddit, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. News, open source projects, feedback. We always have a thread for each episode. And there you can find 393 and give us your feedback. Anything you think is newsworthy or noteworthy that the community should know about, submit it there. And also, if you have a perspective on any of those stories or projects or apps or anything like that, we really appreciate the comments, too. That is a very crucial part because it seems to be one of the best places for not just news, but also really actual good commentary on Linux stories on Reddit. And so I really, really appreciate that. I'm very thankful for that too. And so you can be part of that. There's more than 7,000. Actually, how many are there, Noah? Let's take a look. We should say thank you to the subreddit. We really should. Let's do this right.
We love you, subreddit.
Yeah, let's do this right here. So there are 9,335 Redditors on the Linux Action Show subreddit. And I just want to say thank you to the Linux Action Show subreddit for helping create some interesting and great content and dialogue, and also for helping vet some of these stories. The reason we created the subreddit and decided to, honestly, at first, some people were like, dude, you're going to spoil what you're going to talk about. Well, not everything we talk about is on the subreddit by a large margin. But also, what we really discovered was it became a way to sort of filter bogus news in a response to a lot of really sort of subpar Linux journalists who just write stories that are basically their opinion based on speculation, and then it becomes news. We really wanted to make sure that the stories that make it into our show have had some level of vetting. And so this is part of that vetting process, and we've crowdsourced that. And it filters into all other aspects of the show. So big thank you, and a lot of appreciation to the subreddit, linuxactionshow.reddit.com, if you'd like to get involved. And also sometimes where you'll find sort of like extra content or announcements or threads that we might ask Q&As if we're going to do an interview on the show. So there's a lot to it. linuxactionshow.reddit.com. All right, Noah, well, that brings us to the end of this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. Happy holidays to all of those in the U.S. that celebrated it. Happy holidays to anybody watching this. Well, you know what? Screw you. Happy holidays. You take it. You take it and you'll love it. Something like that. Thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next week. So that video you sent me, was that last night?
Dude.
All right,
yes.
so do you mind, can we talk about it on
air? Oh yeah, we can talk about
it.
All
right, so tell the audience what happened. Do you want me to pull the video up? I could
you can do that. While you're doing that, I'll start from the beginning.
Okay,
so
yeah, you start from the beginning.
The beginning is that my wife and I are having another child. And so,
hey, congratulations! Wow, yeah. Wait, hold on, that's what...
Then your description is
what?
Not accurate.
Wait, that wasn't what I meant to play. Hold on a second.
No, the description is very accurate.
Congratulations, Mr. Colonel Linux. Congratulations. It's now public. That's public in a big way now.
Well, actually, I decided about 30 seconds ago it was public.
Oh, wow, okay.
But yeah, no, so we needed a bigger house because 1,800 square feet with 2 bedrooms isn't going to work with 3 kids. And so we went to get a bigger house, and the trade-off was, to make the budget work, is we had to buy a slightly older house.
Right.
That, so we have drastically more square footage, and it's a little bit older. Well, so we've been in the house now for like 7 days. And
which if you guys think about the timing of that, it means that Mr. Colonel Linux there was in the process of moving over while we were at System 76. Like, things were in progress, so that's a tight schedule.
We closed the day after I got back to Grand Forks from Denver. Yeah, it was a fun time.
You and I both had a lot of housing shenanigans.
Yes.
Yours are much more dramatic than mine. But I was like, some things were real touch and go for me too. So you're in now. You've been in for 7 days.
Yep. And so last night, I send Chris a message, and I'm like, listen, I know that I've been moving and that things have been kind of hectic, and I'm really sorry that I really haven't been bringing my full game on, but tonight I'm going to concentrate on show notes. And I get home, and I'm sitting working on show notes, and all of a sudden I hear, boom, whoosh, I go downstairs. And the drain plug at the bottom of the water heater had blown out, and all 85 gallons.
Oh my gosh.
The beauties of a older house. This is fun. This is great fun.
So your water heater broke.
Yeah, water heater broke
all over the floor.
All over the floor. And the guy comes over. So at first I'm like, I'm not ignorant when it comes to fixing stuff. I will fix it myself, because what harm can come is the basement is, there's water all over the place. So I get the part I need. And the old fitting was plastic, and it had sheared off right at the end.
Oh yeah.
And so it was stuck inside of the thread. So I take my Easy out, and I'm trying to back out back out this little plastic piece that's stuck in there. And after like an hour and a half of doing this, I'm like, I give up. I'm done. I'm calling somebody. I'm done.
Yeah.
So I call, and of course they're like, sir, would you like to pay emergency overtime rates of 2.5 times the norm? I'm like, whatever. Just fix the water heater. I want to be able to take a shower.
No, I would
tomorrow.
not, but whatever. Fine.
Exactly. Not my preference. So the guy comes over and they end up fixing it. They did a great job. And so then we had a water heater, and I still managed to make some meaningful, at least I think, meaningful contributions to show notes.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So my story is not quite as dramatic as yours, but it is one of those go figure stories because the weekend before we left to go to System 76. So what was that? How long ago was that, Noah? 4 weeks? 3 weeks?
It was, let's see, it would have been the week of the 10th.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So
about
that
2 weeks
weekend
ago.
before we left to go to System 76, I discovered that the city water hookup to the JB rover is just projectile squirting water out the side of it. I made a rover log. It was in a rover log out there if you guys want to find it. But it was just like, it was unusable. I was just jettisoning water out the side of the rover. And so I had to switch over to using the pump and the tank. So I decide before I leave, I'm going to fix this city water hookup because, well, I watched a YouTube video, so Bob's your uncle, no problem, right? And so I disconnect the hose and I remove the 3 screws from the faceplate and I pry it off of all of the insulating kind of like caulking tape that it had on there, scrape all of that off, scrape it clean, pull off the connector, go down to Camping World, buy myself a new faceplate, get home and realize that the Camping World faceplate required a male connection on the other side, and the trailer has a female connector. Okay, all right, so that meant I wasn't going to get that done before I left for System 76 later that week, so I leave, and now, mind you, that means there is a hole in the side of the rover, right?
What could go wrong? Because you're only there for 3-4 days.
We have one of the largest storms in years here in the Pacific Northwest. Tons of rain. It was unbelievable amounts of rain. We had massive flooding. We had massive power outages. And we just recently had another big power outage round too. I mean, just a ton of rain. And then, of course, now it's below freezing, so things are freezing as well. So then this last Wednesday, I finally get enough time to go in there before we go to Thanksgiving shenanigans and try to hook up a little adapter to make it, connect the 2 pieces together. I get it all in there. I get the insulating goop in there. I get it all connected. I get it all retaped back, screwed back down, hook the water back up. No spraying out the side of the rover, but now I look inside and the connectors are squirting water all over the place. So now here I am like almost a month into this thing and I still don't have water hookups. And I came to the realization that even though this is an exceedingly simple job that I watched and grokked in a 2-minute YouTube video, I came to the realization, guess what? Doesn't mean I have the time or the experience, or here's the real kicker, the tools. Because I now live on my own and I don't have any tools at all because I left all those at the house, so Ange has them. I don't have any tools. So I'm like using my hands to get it as tight as possible.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, all kinds, I'm an animal in there.
I think I know your problem. Just listening to what you're explaining, I think I know what the problem was. I think you used right-handed Teflon tape, and you should have used left-handed Teflon tape.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it sounds like.
Here's what I don't understand, though, Noah. Like, legitimately, I don't understand, is I take the old faceplate, the old one that leaks out the front, and I hook it back up, hand tightening with no sealing goop on the nothing, no leaks. Hand tightened, no sealing goop, no leaks. I take the new Camping World one, connect it with the little little adapter thingy, leaks on both ends. Don't understand.
Well, when you take it in, make sure to ask and be like, "Hey, well, why?"
I'm not taking it in. I think I'm gonna
figure it out.
No. I think I've been looking around. There's different, with these different all these people that are out there now full timing in their RVs. There's a whole like crop of mobile technicians who will just come out to your campsite. So I think I might just have a guy do that.
Yeah, that's even better. I didn't know that was a thing. Well, here's why I didn't know it was a thing, because that wouldn't be a thing in Grand Forks.
No? Why?
Why? Because I'm thinking around the neighborhood. No, there's nobody that does that.
Yeah.
There's only 50,000 people here, and none of them fix RV. So I know what they all do.
Yeah, you do actually. You even know the cops by name. Here's the thing, Noah.
Tell me the thing. Oh no, what did I do?
Nothing. No, it's just living in the rover. It gets cold, so it's below freezing. Last night was about 23 degrees out. And so I've officially switched to wearing. I'm wearing. What do you call this stuff?
Thermal. I call it thermal.
The thermal underwear stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Full body underwear. No, a full. I end up taking off halfway through the night. Hello. But yeah, so now I'm walking around in underwear all the time. I feel like I'm, hello, chap, I'm from the 1980s, and I wear my underwear outside all the time. Is that how they...
I don't see any problem with that. That was an excellent
Thank
rendition
you.
in the 1980s.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
here's my question. You know, I've never been cold in the studio, like ever. Middle of February, middle of July, doesn't seem to matter. I don't
No, in
seem
the
to-
studio? No, studio's not so bad at all. No, studio sometimes is too warm. No, no. It's the Rover.
Okay.
It's the
And you just
Rover.
don't want to change out of it before you do a show?
Well, no, because I got to go outside at some point.
Oh, that's true.
You know, I got to go outside at some point. It's
You could do the show naked and then
Huh.
get back into your underwear before you go back home.
I could do the show naked. All right, let me try that.
Okay. All right.
All right, so we're about to do the
Turn the
news.
camera on though.
Huh? Hold on,
turn the
hold on,
camera on if you're gonna
hold
do
on,
it?
I'm taking off my clothes. Give me a second here. Jeez, Noah.
That's
Don't
why I
push
want
it.
the camera on.